the Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Hello, and welcome back to the show. Can businesses build a caring machine? What does that even look like, and why would you do it? I'm Steven Sakash here once again with Tulio Siragusa and Ash Mar. How you guys doing today? Good?
Good. I love that music. I'm in the mood.
So there was this research paper that came out in the American Marketing Association titled The Caring Machine, Feeling AI for Customer Care. So basically, can we create an AI caring machine for customer service is basically what this is about. Part of the paper proposed a new customer journey model based around emotions. And that's what I want to get into today. I know it's not, politics or Hollywood celebrity stuff. We're certainly not that podcast. But if you want to dive in the future of business consciousness and where it's going, if you want to build an authentic business and understand how you're going to be challenged in the age of AI, we've got you covered. So today, we want to break down these 4 stages of this new customer journey model. So this is basically, this paper is coming off the premise that establishing an emotional connection with your customers will increase sales and improve customer lifetime value. This is something that we preach nonstop. And, this is what our AI CMO is all about, is building that emotional connection. And if you haven't stopped over, go to aicmo.io, get on the wait list. We're getting really close to our release of that. But that is a tool that's going to help you make this emotional connection because it's super powerful. So something we're deeply focused on. Now, this paper, it proposes a new 4-stage customer journey model. It's a super empathetic model. And the paper is really about where AI can come in with chatbots and stuff like that. So it's coming from that angle quite a bit. But they surveyed more than 300 CMOs and chief customer officers. So this is a very in-depth sort of survey going on here. So we're going to dive into this and hopefully make this a little more exciting than, putting together some IKEA furniture or something for you. So we've got some fun ways to illustrate the various stages. So real quick, here's the 4 stages. And then guys, I'm going to get your reaction, I think, after we'll dive into each one of these. So the 4 stages are emotion recognition, emotion understanding, emotion management, emotional connection. This is the 4 stages of this new customer journey. So let's dive into this first one, emotion recognition stage. So if I was to show you a meme that would illustrate this, picture the one with the boyfriend and his girlfriend, and the other girl walks by and he looks back, he's just catches his eye, he's zeroed in on something, some emotional response happened there. This first stage is really about identifying that emotion that the customer may be having in there. So where it's coming from a lot of times is like a chat bot or something. So if you're chatting, both of you, you've been through some customer service nightmares probably where you're just angry, right? And you're coming in there.
Yes, that's when you activate the Karen machine.
Yeah, the switch in Tulio's head that turns into a Karen. So yeah. No, it's like AI they're talking about, can it recognize this? And so, yeah, give an example of where you guys maybe have been a little themed coming in. You're coming in hot. Something just messed up.
I was going to just jump in real quick. For me, I recently just had an issue with an airline, and we're trying to get our flight canceled so we can get the money back into our accounts. And I had to deal with an AI, so I came in hot. At one point, I'm like, wait, am I talking to a human or a robot right now? Tell me, I demand to know who am I talking to. So I had my moment, and I think I was talking to an AI, but I knew how to soothe me and get me where I needed to go.
So this is yeah, like kind of a perfect example almost about that. It's understanding, okay, it's got to be able to understand your emotional stage that you're coming in at. It's got to recognize what those issues are. And one of the challenges they said is that maybe people might not be truthful sometimes in what the emotion is. They might say, how are you feeling? They may give some other answer. And so the accuracy of AI would be kind of compromised if it's going purely based on the single point of, recognition. Like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. It might just
It's fine.
it's like, okay, great. No, it's just like, it's got to recognize, more than just the inputs. It's got to look at like the, multiple points of recognition. So maybe looking at, facial recognition, looking at the tone and stuff like that. So it can understand sarcasm. Because if I come in like that, it's just like, great, I'm glad you're doing well. And then it's just, you're totally stumbling out of the gates there. So that first stage, it kind of makes sense, right? It's just identify what emotions being expressed here.
Yeah. I think it also goes deeper in the sense that we are emotional creatures, whether we want to admit it or not. There's those who acknowledge it, and then there's those who are like, no, I'm very clinical, make decisions. I'm business minded, and you're just lying to yourself. So, but we all make decisions not just on the transactional need for something, but on the intrinsic experience that we want to have. So, recognizing that, being curious about that's really, it's the first stage of really activating empathy, is to try to understand what's the motivation behind someone calling or someone inquiring about a product or service. And that's something that usually requires a human element to understanding. Although AI is getting smarter and better, probably part of the challenge is, if you're on the phone, is understanding tonality, picking up on sarcasm. That's not something that a machine, I don't think, can do very well yet. It can be prompted so that it recognizes it if you type into it and such. But having that understanding, I think, is so foundational to everything any business does and how they serve their customers. Without that, you're just kind of like hoping that your cookie cutter approach fits everybody, and none of us are cookie cutter. So, so important.
Yeah. And Ash, does this sound sort of like the kind of awareness stage, of the traditional customer journey?
Yeah, because there was a point in time where it was understood, hey, let's introduce our brand, bring awareness, who we are all about. But really today, when you look at the meme culture, the reason why memes are so viral and they get so popular is because people relate to a specific emotion that meme is essentially exemplifying. So if you can create campaigns in that stage where you're recognizing the people's emotions, when you understand what their actual pain points and needs are, and you hit that emotion hard, that could be a very successful campaign. And that what used to be the awareness stage, now we're talking about the emotional recognition stage. So it's really recognizing and trying to do, when you're doing that market research, really deeply understanding the pain points and emotions of your customers. What problem are you truly serving for them? And in serving it for them, to Leo's point, how can you bring that intrinsic attachment to that product, right? That how can you serve them where you're hitting them intrinsically, right? Something that maybe means something to them from a culture standpoint, maybe something they've experienced in the past that they relate to, and they're like, hey, this actually speaks to me directly at an internal level. So that's a little deeper level of market research that you have to do, but I think that's the direction we're going in terms, or at least in this case, is the new sales funnel.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. It's like
And
that,
it can reshape so many things, even in customer service. Think about it, right? You call into a call center, you're queued based on when you called.
Yeah.
You're given priority based on where you are on the line, which I guess it could be called fair, but realistically, there's some customers that are already starting out irate, and put them on hold for a long time. They're going to, by the time they show up, they're Karen for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
Which will make everybody's life difficult, and even the ability to serve them will be difficult. So imagine somehow if AI can capture the sentiment or the feeling of the caller. And I don't know how it could pick that up, whether it literally at the beginning says, how you doing today? Press 1 if awesome, press 5 if not so great, something like that. That allows the system to acknowledge this person's not doing so good. Maybe we prioritize them to get them taken care of, and maybe they even get routed to the 10% of our staff that's super empathetic and patient. All these things can be done with technology today. As if you find some elegant way to prompt it, or maybe it's able to listen and see how the person's breathing, or what's going on in the background. There's got to be some ways to capture that, where a person would, just by hearing the person talking, how loud they are, how upset they are. Somehow there's a way to qualify that up front, and then routing calls to the right people can make a huge difference on even in customer service calls, for example. But I might be talking something that's way down the line, but ultimately that's part of the journey too, is enabling that and catering to the need of the buyer or the customer at that time. And sometimes the need of that buyer is to just put them at ease, calm them down. I recently had a situation that I was like, this is, we could talk about it later, but the person was able to handle it so softly and nicely, and like within a minute it was resolved. And but it could have easily become very frustrating, and it was an emergency kind of situation, needed something done right away. But I think this particular company actually uses AI to prioritize some of those calls, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah. A lot of these companies were using AI as sort of chatbots and things like that for customer service, customer care. And they were talking about, in this study, there was a lot of lists of just the pros and cons from these different, 300 executives on using this, but it was pushing people, it was managing people through this sort of new customer, or not new customer journey, but this reproposed customer journey, as far as, going through these specific stages in order to get you to that happy emotional outcome. So the first stage we just talked about, so that's emotional recognition. So the next stage we go to is emotion understanding. So it's being empathetic about the customer's emotions. It's, obviously requires empathy. So this is, can AI do this? Can it do it well? One executive said, AI can fake empathy just like human emotional labor. This was the quote. Such a weird sentence. Human emotional labor. I mean, like, man, you sound more like a robot than AI does.
More like robots.
What is happening here?
HEL.
So this second stage, this is
everything.
The second stage, this is typically the stage that's labeled as like understanding, engaging, or exploring in the customer journey. So that's kind of where we're at here. The meme we don't want to be, Homer Simpson backing into the bush here, away from as soon as we get that negative emotion disappearing. We don't want to be the Michael Scott, I understand nothing meme. We don't want that. So what I'm picturing here is maybe the Jack Nicholson nodding one. Let's like, yes, I get you, except, maybe not as creepy or evil as he looks, but in that, but it's the recognizing and the understanding is, so we go from recognizing, now we're going to understanding. So that's this part of this customer journey. Tula, maybe you were mentioning your recent customer service interaction. Was there a point where the rep understood you emotionally?
Yeah, well, there was a sense of urgency. So I used to have Copper for my kids' debit cards and credit cards, so I could transfer like allowances and encourage saving and things like that. And somehow they just decided they were getting out of the banking business, so I had to find a different platform and transfer all the money. So that in itself was, a headache, but got all that done, and then I thought I had tied in all the necessary information to be able to transfer money as needed, especially if it was like needed urgently. So my daughter's in Miami and I'm in Southern California and like, she needs money. Like, and I'm like, and I tried to do it Friday and it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, it says I've maxed out my transaction. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I'll wait till the next day, because it wasn't urgent at that time. and it didn't work. So then Monday comes around, it's like, Dad, I'm at the line to pay for food. I'm like, I can't transfer the money. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I mean, this is urgent. So I reach out to them through the chat, and I'm like, I need help with a human being right now, and it recognized that it was somewhat urgent. And I actually got to speak with someone, and turns out you have to put your debit card as a funding source, not just your checking account, because the debit card somehow immediately allows you to do the transfer. So it resolved very quickly. And then I was able to, while my daughter was still online, send her the money so she could pay for her lunch. But the point is that if I was stuck in some bot, endless query thing, that would have made me very frustrated. I probably would have just canceled service and gone with something else.
Yeah.
But somehow they were able to recognize there was a sense of urgency here. So my emotional desire was heightened by trying to solve something very quickly. And there was a bit of frustration because I thought I had followed all the instructions, but there was nothing in there that had said, hey, by the way, if you want to do quick transfer, do your debit card, which is something I gave feedback on. It's like, you probably should have a little pop-up window that tells people this. But nonetheless, it was resolved, and it was resolved quickly. And I think it was a beautiful marriage between technology and human being who were very empathetic to the immediate needs that were there, who understood the urgency and were able to resolve it very quickly. In fact, I was able to do everything while they waited for me on the phone. Not everybody will be willing to do that. Somebody might have turned around and be like, oh, yeah, you didn't follow the instructions on how to do this.
So your first interaction, it was kind of, you call in, and it was with sort of some AI, right? But then the emotional, in this customer service example, the emotional sort of empathy part came when the human came in this scenario. And understood.
I think the AI was trained enough to recognize that this was something that it couldn't handle. It was pretty quick. You usually get a lot of prompts before you get to speak to humans. Like, you call the pharmacy and you have to keep saying pharmacist before it finally patches you through. This one, it kind of because of what I type, I was able to type, I have an urgent need to speak with someone. Okay. This is not a problem you can solve. And instead of saying, yeah, I would love to do that, but let me get an understanding of what's going on, it just didn't.
Sort of
so I felt as though whoever created that journey was cognitive enough to understand that there's certain things where you just can't rely on the machine to do. You have to transfer over to someone else.
So what they're trying to do here is to switch it so that the carrying machine can take you onto this stage too, and move you to that next stage with it. But it's like saying, basically, I hear you, and you getting felt heard, basically, in this stage, which is very hard to do, I think, with when you're in that bot, sort of.
If it can evolve to that, then I think people would just totally do that, because the beautiful thing about that is the service is always consistent, because you're providing the service yourself.
Ash, I know we've talked about this in the past, but do we think at some point the younger generation would actually just, I prefer the bot, even though I'm angry, or is it just still, no, I want a human, I'm stuck in this maze?
Honestly, I think the younger generation, with their shorter and constantly shortening attention spans, are going to want the thing that's going to solve their problem in the nicest way possible. So they'll definitely lean towards the positive vibes, if you understand what I mean. And reality is if the bot can route people towards where they feel more emotionally comfortable and solve their problem at lightning speed in the way that they want their problem solved, they're going to lean towards that. It's just natural. I think we're leaning towards that direction anyway. So the more you can meet the person's needs literally and emotionally, I think at that point you're ultimately solving the full funnel for that person, and they become customers for life, ambassadors at that point.
Yep. So we'll get to those stages. So all right. So let's go to the next stage here. So stage 3 on this 4-stage customer journey. This is emotion management. So this is providing emotional management, recommendations to assist the customer. And when a customer finds that the customer care or recommendation is helpful, I think that's really key. Is this helpful? Is that word, and just having that experience, this is helpful, because otherwise you're not feeling like the situation is being managed, right? So I want to get to this stage. Okay, this is helpful. This is very cool. Okay, my problem is going to be solved, I think. So this is often labeled in the traditional customer journey. This is really that decision, that desire decision sort of stage. So we're getting into emotional management, and this is like when Tulio, when you got to the human and you had that sense of urgency, and then they started switching you to, okay, here's what you need to do. That's part of, so now that's this part of the stage in that customer care journey.
And I think this is so key. I remember 35 years ago, I started my career at a call center. I remember whenever a customer called in, we had different categories in their account. And like if someone called in who was kind of a Karen, always upset, they were tagged as irate customer, right? So now you've got this tag where you're an irate customer. And going back, most of those just probably needed a little bit more empathy, just because most of those folks became irate because they called and no one took care of their needs, and they had to call again and had to call again. I mean, any normal human being will just get upset, if you cause that for them enough time. So, in today's time with this kind of approach, that client or customer would have been tagged as requiring more empathy, right? Maybe they have neurodivergency that triggers them faster than somebody else, right? So rather than call them out as something they're doing wrong, maybe we just need to learn how to be more adaptive to the needs of different people. And I think this is where AI can really help, because it doesn't have the ego and the emotion and the translation that often comes from whatever trauma we haven't dealt with, right? So we will see something and get triggered by, instead of seeing beyond the issue and seeing, okay, this person's upset. Why are they upset? Did we do something that upset them? How can we take care of them? How can we create a healing, for all of us here, right? Mm-hmm. That requires tremendous empathy and tremendous love. And I think AI can enable it in such a way where the needs are being met without labeling someone. And also it doesn't take into consideration what's going on. We don't know what's going on emotionally and mentally with that individual. So there's definitely some value of having something that is not emotionally attached, but can enable better emotional engagement, if that makes any sense. And I think that's a very difficult thing for human beings to do, where AI can really step in and do it better.
Yeah, I think they bring this up in the report, is that on the flip side of this is, as the customer service rep, you're also emotional too. And so if you're not doing your job well, you're taking things a little personally or something. When someone comes in, I mean, you don't know what someone's going through in their day. And, there's all kinds of reasons. Like someone could just be, this is just the straw that made them snap. And I'm sure we've all been there at some point where it's just one thing after another, and then now this. And, so it's probably not the person's finest moment on there. But sometimes they come in there and they may be saying all kinds of things and taking it out on someone else. And that other person is like, why do I taking this abuse? And they'll, maybe give it back or something. And now you're not getting anywhere with managing this emotional situation. It's just actually kind of going backwards.
And it's so true. It can happen to anyone. My family still laughs about the moment that I lost it over a remote control that was misplaced. It was such a stupid thing, but it was literally the straw that broke the camel's back. And they laugh about it because, like, what the heck happened to you in that moment? Because that's not, but it was just, it can happen, right? So now you can judge that person forever, or you can be like, okay, this is not the normal thing that this person would do. And you can have a little empathy for them, but it can happen. So having this journey, I think, is so key for people to understand those dynamics.
Ash, so the meme I've got for this one is the everything's fine dog, where the dog is in the middle of the room and there's, fire all around, and it's like, this is fine.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of emotional management we need in these situations? Is the sometimes
I aspire to be that dog.
So I think that's kind of the perfect meme for this one. Is just, we've all been there, various reasons, and it's not your finest hour maybe, and I also want to say I feel sorry for the people with the name Karen out there, because you've got the persona now that's come public, is that this is the customer persona. And I know some really nice Karens. And so bless you, nice Karens, for taking on this burden of being the person who's just coming in hot.
It's really funny too. If you are a nice Karen, that awkward conversation of people saying, "Oh, you're the nicest Karen I've ever met." You got designated that person. So thank you for being that person.
Stop this insanity.
Right.
All right. So the last stage here, stage 4, this is the emotional connection. So the ultimate stage is to establish this emotional connection with the customer, and this is going to really result in like that customer lifetime value. So this is typically, that part of the customer journey that we're all used to, which is like the loyalty, sort of satisfaction stage. So the quote here from an executive: emotional connection is about the way you help, not the actual solution you provide, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's really leaning into just the way you help, and maybe sometimes you can't help a situation, I guess. But if you provide it in a very emotionally intelligent way, you can probably even get by, and people will appreciate that and be loyal to the brand, because you were being authentic, you were trying to help, and it was just one of those situations. But so this is that kind of final stage where you're really sort of satisfied emotionally. Ash, I think you were mentioning something like this earlier. Have you been there recently with any sort of purchase or customer service or anything?
Oh yeah, no, it was a scenario where I had to throw an event for my community, my music community, and we needed CDJs last minute. And the event company that we ended up contacting, when they were able to satisfy the exact ones we needed at the time we needed it, provide us all the information, it made it super seamless for us. The feeling of satisfaction of, one, getting what we needed on time, 2, it being a great event, and it all working out the way it was supposed to. It almost felt like that they became a part of our family, part of our community. So now that company is our direct supplier for all of our events, to avoid any issue. Like I know each person under my name, right? But that feeling of that very end, that satisfaction of your need was met when I came at them hot. And I'm telling you, like, I trauma dumped on these individuals, and they were able to take it in and work together to satisfy our needs. Now, if AI can do something like that and manage my needs, where it's one program I contacted, it speaks to me, gets me exactly what I need, lets in all my drama, and then fires away, that would also be phenomenal, right? But this is an example of humans just being humans, right? And that left a lasting touch.
Yeah, and if it's that one company that just gets it and does it right,
yeah,
I mean, that's really where you develop that loyalty. So on that regard, so the meme I've got for this one is the Lady Gaga: there can be 100 people in a room and 99 don't believe in you, but all it takes is one.
Yeah.
And so it's like that one gets me.
Yeah.
I'm building a meaningful connection here. And that's really kind of where you want to get to with the brand at some point, is just like, yeah, you're that one, and you get me, and I'm going to be loyal to you. So guys,
that is such a key thing, that this idea of getting me. If you feel that way, that's going to create tremendous loyalty, and someone will be willing to spend more for something that's not even on par with a competitor product, just because they feel validated and like they get me. Yeah. We will all make that decision. If you analyze every purchase decision you've ever made, it always came down to who you felt got you better than anybody else. Yeah. That's where empathy always wins.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So what I want to do in the next episode is I want to dive into some ideas of tactics you can use for each of these stages. So if you're thinking newly about this, we want to dive into some tactics, and then we'll give some examples of, so here are the tactics you use. Here's some examples of a company doing this. And so we're going to do that. Stay tuned. We're going to dive in on the next Bliss Business podcast.